Today on Network Africa, the 27th African Union Heads of State and Government meeting begins in the Rwandan capital, Kigali. After 32 years, Morocco requests to rejoin the African Union. Plus, inflation in Nigeria hits 16.5%. Hello everyone, I am BC Adebayo. Now let's begin our journey today by reviewing stories that made headlines over the weekend.
Forces aligned with Libya's UN-backed government suffered losses from snipers and mines on Friday as they battled Islamic State to win control of a strategic conference center in the coastal city of Sirte. Islamic State is clinging on in the center of Sirte in the face of a 2-month campaign by brigades mainly composed of fighters from the western city of Misrata. Their advancement has been slowed by fighters from militants holed up in a 5-kilometer area in central Sirte. Losing Sirte would represent a major setback for Islamic State, which established its most important base outside Syria and Iraq in the Libyan city. Sirte had been under the militant group's control since last year, and it had extended its presence along about 250 kilometers of coastline. Elsewhere, the United Nations Security Council is considering whether to send up to 228 UN police to Burundi to monitor the security and human rights situation in the East African country, where deadly political violence had simmered for more than a year. France circulated a draft resolution to the 15-member council last Friday to deploy police for 1 year and ask UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon to report immediately on grave security incidents or human rights abuses. Burundi's UN ambassador Alba Shingiro believes his country would only accept up to 50 unarmed UN police, adding that the sovereignty of Burundi must be fully respected. The investigation committee says Egypt Air Flight MS-804 audio mentions a fire on board the plane in its final moment, confirming what sources on the committee had previously told Reuters. The Airbus A320 plunged into the eastern Mediterranean en route from Paris to Cairo on May 19. All 66 people on board were killed. The cause of the crash remains unknown. Earlier analysis of the plane's flight data recorder showed there had been smoke in the lavatory and avionic bay, while recovered wreckage from the jet's front section showed signs of high temperature damage and soot. Initial audio extracted from the flight deck voice recorder had indicated an attempt to put out a fire on the jet before it crashed. The committee over the weekend said it was still too early to determine the reason or the place where that fire occurred. The committee also said the John Lethbridge vessel belonging to Mauritius-based Deep Ocean Search had completed its search for human remains, which will now be transferred to Cairo for DNA analysis.
Today is the start of the 27th Ordinary Session of the African Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union, holding in the Rwandan capital, Kigali. The main focus of the meeting this time seems to be the crisis in South Sudan and how to prevent it from going into a full-blown war. Recall that 2 weeks ago, clashes broke out between rival factions in the army, those loyal to President Salva Kiir and those loyal to First Vice President Riek Machar. Chad's president, who's also current chair of the AU, Idriss Deby, says the upsurge of violence is unacceptable. He is calling on both leaders to respect a peace agreement struck in August last year. Now, the recent violence has claimed up to 300 lives and forced more than 40,000 people from their homes. The 54-member African Union also agreed to use some cash paid to import goods to help raise $1.2 billion starting next year, reducing its reliance on donors such as the World Bank that provides about 3/4 of funding for its programs. Now, during that summit, the African Union is expected to launch the electronic passport, a leading project of Africa's agenda for 2063, with a view to facilitate free movement of persons, goods and services around the continent to help foster intra-Africa trade, integration and socio-economic development. Well, it's the case of the prodigal son returning for Morocco, which has been out of the African Union since 1984. However, this year, the country's authorities have sent a delegation to the meetings in Kigali, requesting to be reintegrated into the continental body. But let's look at the reason Morocco left in the first place. Well, it had to do with the independence of a small community now known as Western Sahara. The African Union and a few other world bodies recognize it as a nation apart from Morocco, but Morocco only considers it a province. Moroccan authorities believe that their absence from the AU has not helped them diplomatically, not just over the Western Sahara issue, but others as well. Morocco happens to be the only African country which is not a member of the EU. Now let's learn more about the reasons for Morocco's decision 32 years ago. Between 1975 and 1976, Morocco annexed 2/3 of Western Sahara after colonial power Spain withdrew. Then, still within the same period, the Polisario fronts declared the Saharan Arab Democratic Republic with a government in exile in Algeria. Thousands of Sahrawi refugees fled to Western Algeria to set up camps, and by 1984, Morocco withdrew its membership of the Organization of African Unity, now known as the African Union, protesting the SADR's admission to the body. By 1991, the UN-monitored ceasefire began in Western Sahara, but the territory status remained undecided and the ceasefire violations were reported. Now, fast forward to March this year, Morocco threatened to pull its soldiers out of the UN global peacekeeping missions in Western Sahara after the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon used the term occupation when referring to the territory. By May, the longtime Polisario Front leader Mohamed Abdelaziz died at the age of 68, now bringing the country to the position it is right now. Well, the Voice of America's Nick Long joins us from Kigali with more on the recent developments. Nick, thanks for joining us. Now, tell us more about this extraordinary request coming from Morocco.
I'm sorry, I can't hear a word. I'm going to have to switch off.
Okay, could you tell us more about this request coming from Morocco to join the AU?
Well, we understand that the King of Morocco wrote to the African Union a few days ago making this request. According to Moroccan sources, there are now only 13 African countries that still support Western Sahara's independence. So that may be one reason for Morocco feeling this is a good time to reapply to join the African Union. It's reported that Zambia is one of the countries that dropped out as a supporter of Western Sahara in recent years. It's possible that the African Union is trying to sweeten the pill for Algeria, which is the main supporter of Polisario, the independence movement in Western Sahara. Algeria has been awarded the overall Winners' Award in a ceremony giving out gender awards. Algeria came top on social rights for women, and the Algerian representative was rewarded with that. It's still not known whether the General Assembly of the African Union is going to approve Morocco's request. Nothing has been said on that so far, although the answer to that question may come out in the next hour at a press conference, which we're all eagerly awaiting.
All right, hold on to your thoughts, Nick. We'll be back in a moment to continue with that conversation. Please stay with us.